Have you ever dreamed of zooming around the racetrack or putting the pedal to the metal? Then you have felt the need for speed. Hi, my name is Galen. I'm 13 years old and part of the Acting Craft 4-H Club. This is my third year in 4-H and my third visual presentation, and today I'll talk to you about super sports cars and what makes them special. Normal cars have four major things that work together to make them go. They are the engine, body, suspension, and the brakes. The engine of a normal car has 4 to 6 pistons. Well, that's helpful. What's a piston? A piston is a cylinder with a rod protruding from the bottom. A metal disc is attached to the rod. These are the steps the piston goes through to move the car. The rod goes down and gas mixed with air goes into the piston. The rod goes back up, compressing the gas and air. A spark plug fires, which makes a spark and ignites the gas and air. The resulting explosion pushes the rod back down. This is repeated in the chain. Many pistons are hooked together with irregular intervals between each other, so the rods never get stuck at the bottom. The bodies of normal cars are usually made of fiberglass or aluminum or steel. This is because all these materials are lightweight and strong. Some newer car companies are putting plastic in the car bodies, and I'm not talking about toy cars. A notable name is Chrysler in that genre. Some normal cars have safety features that are heavy. For example, spare tires are not light. Oh no, it lost a tire! Other things are heavy too, like good seats. The suspension is what connects the axle to the wheel. It springs, cushioning the bumps and bruises of driving. And if you have ever driven in a car without suspension, then you know what I mean. Shock absorbers attached to the axle help to cushion your ride even further. Normal car brakes work like this. There are 2 pads and 1 rotor that make the brake work. The 2 pads are attached to the car, while the rotor is attached to the wheel. When the brake pedal is pressed, brake fluid, which is a type of hydraulic fluid, presses the pads against the rotor. This action creates friction and slows the car. One fun fact is that front wheel brakes undergo more stress. This is because the car lurches forward when you stop. Now that I told you what normal cars have, what do supercar manufacturers change? Supercar engines are different from normal car engines in several ways. One of these ways is a turbocharger. A turbocharger is a turbine that presses more air into the piston. This causes more gas to be pulled in along with it. More gas means more torque. Torque is the rotational equivalent of linear force. There are faults, however. One of these is that it uses much more gas. In other words, the aspiration is much worse than a normal car. There is a delay from putting the pedal to the metal to the turbocharger being engaged. The turbocharger uses the exhaust to turn itself, so if you are at idle or neutral, you will need to work up some exhaust to engage the turbocharger. Another term in the hypercar world is supercharger. This works much the same way as a turbocharger, except it is a belt and chain, not a turbine. It has bad aspiration and does not start automatically. This time it is because it uses some horsepower to generate more, so the driver will need to increase the rate that work is getting done to engage the supercharger. Supercars are made of different materials so that the body is lighter. For example, the interior of many supercars is made of leather, but all that hide is heavy. Why not replace it with fiberglass or aluminum or just plain carbon fiber? Other car appliances such as air conditioning, navigation systems, electric windows, and seat adjusters are just a waste of weight and space, at least in a supercar. Take all these and more out and you get a car at least 100 kilograms lighter. Race suspensions are extremely stiff. The part that is stiff are the springs. They allow the driver to read the ground. When a wheel hits a bump, the springs absorb the pressure so the driver feels it less. Race suspensions are lower to the ground so the driver feels more of the ground underneath it. Stiff suspensions are essential when racing because the driver needs to know when and where the car will skid and or grip more than he wants. Bumping along with these on a normal road would be a nightmare and probably jiggle the teeth right out of your head. I've only scratched the surface of how supercars are different from normal cars. My favorite car is the Lamborghini Aventador LP784 Ultimate. It has a top speed of 280 miles per hour and can get to 60 miles per hour in 2.8 seconds. Wow, that's fast. Its suspension is wishbone and independent, which means a wishbone-shaped piece of metal connects the front left tire and the rear left tire. These two pieces of metal pivot on a fulcrum in the center of the car. And independent means that each wheel can react to the ground underneath it without affecting the other wheels. Its brakes are not that different from a normal car, except they are double-disked and vented, which means two rotors are glued together with vents in between. So when the wheel spins, air goes through these vents and helps cool it down. It also has hill hold control, which means that if it's driving up a hill and you stop and take your foot off the brake, you won't roll back down. The brakes will maintain the right pressure for you to stay on the slope, and then will let up again as you start to drive. Its body is made of a new type of Its engine is naturally aspirated, which means that neither a turbocharger nor a supercharger presses the air into the piston. That is done by atmospheric pressure. It is a V12, meaning it has 12 pistons, so it's super powerful. Its body is made of a new type of carbon fiber manufactured by its creator, Lamborghini. It is called carbon skin and is super light and strong, which is the best combination. Its name, Aventador, means fighting bull, which is appropriate because Lamborghini's emblem is a bull. Mom, can I have this for my birthday? Today, I have talked to you about the parts of a normal car, differences between hyper and normal car parts, and the Lamborghini Aventador LP784 Ultimate. This concludes my visual presentation. As sources, I used flowracers.com, toyotaclaremont.com, lamborghini.com, and Mommy's Limitless Knowledge. Are there any questions?
At the beginning, you explained what pistons were, and then later on, you referenced that one of the cars has 12 pistons, which means it's very powerful. Where's the connection there, and what sort of power scale does it work on?
The question was, what sort of power scale does my favorite car work on? And the more pistons there are, the more inertia it can work up, so it can go much faster and much quicker. It can go much faster quicker.
So you referred to these as supercars, right? Is that the correct term? Are supercars always race cars? I always think of race because you're talking about racing. Are those kind of the same thing, or are those two different things?
The question is, are supercars and race cars the same? They are in different categories, but they share much the same parts.
Okay.
So I'm really into chemistry, so I want to know, is the fuel for a super sports car different than the fuel for my mom's Toyota out in the parking lot, and how?
The question is the fuel different from supercars to normal cars? The answer is it differs from car to car, but usually no. It is just gas and usually high premium.
I have a question. Do you know anybody who either works on or owns a supercar?
The question was, do I know anyone who owns or works on a supercar? And no, I don't.
I have a question. How much more expensive are these usually than an average car? Like, how does that affect the price of all these different modifications?
The question was, how much more expensive are these than a normal car? And I'm not sure because I don't know how much a normal car costs, but it's pretty much, it's past 200,000.
Okay.
That's generous.
Yeah.